Hello, I'm Tom Knight back. This is day 42. We're moving right along. Welcome to a new subscriber. I do check some of the statistics every once in a while, and the ticker every week or so goes up by one. Hey, more the merrier. Come on aboard. Welcome. Day 42. This is 365 days towards racial change, my personal project to bring issues of blackness, a white privilege life, shining lights on darkened or quiet areas on American life that may be the source, the foundation of what the underpinnings of America. Yet we don't get educated. We don't have any discourse about it. We have CNN with all of these, I like to call it white fireworks in our politics, and presently we're going through blackface phase again, the pejorative aspects of it. So we got plenty to work with, plenty of material. At times I get complacent and tired and stuff like that. Don't listen to me moan here. But all I got to do is remember how blacks are on the bottom rung economically in America, that any colorful people, black people, who we consider really making it, are our TV show hosts, sports stars, entertainers, things like that, are a minority of a minority. Let me just put it that way. We won't go into that today. Actually, I want to do something a little different. I want to introduce, the format's still the same. We're talking about works brought to us by a man named Dr. Anderson, and I'll go through my standard introduction to the program. I've read 3 of his books. He's got great stuff. I'm convinced, so I don't have to buy any more of his material. And you can find plenty of his videos on YouTube, Vimeo, or anything like that. But the first book I read was a Black History Reader. Actually, this may be the last book he wrote. I kind of do things that way, so that's crazy like that. We're looking at that book today. Black Labor, White Wealth Search for Power and Economic Justice, and his, maybe his cornerstone book, Powernomics, a National Plan to Empower Black America. Very important, interesting ideas in there. Probably a lot of it's a no-brainer, common sense. It's just written down. But it's codified. He's got a great idea for it. Unfortunately, that book, when he penned that book, he was hoping to see some of the realization of this vision by the year 2005. It's now 2019. So I'm coming to the conversation late. I had not heard of him until a mutual friend introduced us. At least she introduced me to his work. And so here's 14 years later. Ain't much change. I'm still the last person people sit with on public transportation for obvious reasons, obvious racial reasons. And also, we're going to have story time every once in a while. We'll look at Uncle Tom's Cabin. The timing's appropriate too, especially what's going on with the conversation and discourse around blackface, Harriet Beecher Stowe's work. So every week or so, we'll take a chapter out of that and check in on old Uncle Tom and see how that story impacts America. I believe it does. Media, literature, things like that are powerful. That's why you have censorship in this country, believe it or not, yes, and especially other countries with state-run television, controlling the message, because you don't want too much education to get out there. This is America. America's a little different. We got information overload, so even in the face of truth, we still have a tendency to just gloss over important points and areas that need change. But other countries, they're so stringent that they keep their people ignorant to a degree and whatnot. So today we're talking about Dr. Claud Anderson himself. I want to, I'm referencing a lot of his works, and we're talking about his stuff, and I'm essentially on the same page with him. I agree with a whole lot of his messages, material, his burden for Black people. It's it's real. It's not emotional. We're looking at this problem through an economic lens and the context, through history and all that, and it finally makes sense to me. Where I finally have a foothold, understanding how things are the way they were, how things work, and all that. And it's interesting in today's world. I think we're starting to see white folks fall into the same abyss that they've created for blacks when slavery was enacted and prevailed through late 1500s and the 1600s. There's still slavery today, just not explicitly. It's not explicitly lived as slavery in America, but there's real slavery in other parts of the world. And if you can abstract what we do as far as work, how we do it, how we're compelled to go out every day, and how little of our energy and production comes back to us, you'll see America's not that far from slavery as one might expect. So anyway, let's take a look at Dr. Claud Anderson today. He's got some important points, his resume in the back of a Black History Reader, and these are things to really think about. First and foremost, I'm impressed by him. He's what you would call a mulatto or quadroon individual. He's a lighter skinned Black person, means somewhere in his ancestry there's obvious whiteness, prevailing whiteness. Now, even I'm not the darkest Black person. There's different races in me. One day I'll do the DNA test and see where stuff comes from. I know I have a grandmother that was very much Native American. My mother is very fair. So, you're not going to find a whole lot of pure-blooded people around the earth anymore. We lay in with everybody nowadays. But I say that because in my experience, I consider anyone lighter than me as privileged. And so when he's going around talking on the circuits, having these talks and everything, and really putting out some real information I can use and change my life with, I'm impressed. I'm impressed from people from Jesus on down that, they're, to me, they have the place. Buddha would be another one. Have these, and all mothers. And they have these places of security, comfort. And yet they're going to reach down, reach out to lift somebody else up. That's impressive. I have that in me to a degree. I'm still a little biased in how I put it out. If I can get to that point where I could be totally unbiased and serve, I'd probably walk on water or something. So today, Dr. Claud Anderson, and at the back of the book, A Black History Reader, he's got his resume in reverse. Well, what I consider reverse. I've always been taught, if you're going to look at a person's life, you see their humble beginnings, and then it escalates into becoming some national or international character or whatever. So, but I did that here. Now, in his book, A Black History Reader, he starts at the high point, and things trickle down to into his humble beginnings. Doesn't matter. We're going to get the idea. But I just wanted to let you know I'm not following chronologically the way he's displayed it in the book. We'll begin with his military career. I don't have, this is more his resume, not a biography. Okay, so we're looking at his achievements. So where he grew up and all, maybe I'll do research, and I don't know. doesn't matter. We want to get up to speed here by how this man comes to inform me, influence my life, and for me to commit a year to talking about his work and his these issues here. So, as you know, I don't have a whole lot of technical things. Just one more thing. So I don't have pictures and there's no links here. I'll get to that eventually, one of these days. I'm surprised I've done this for over 40 days. So, but YouTube him, Claud Anderson. Get his books. Visit powernomics.com. Visit the Heritage Institute. Find all these things online. Okay, maybe I'll put some links down the bottom. But anyway, his military career strikes me first. Okay, he's a patriot. He believes in America, defends America, and so he's a flight specialist. He's a pilot. I don't have years here, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had a taste of Vietnam or maybe even Korea. So those things might be in there that's not explicit in his work. Here, he's charismatic, so he's a fighter. He knows how to throw hands. He's got championships in wrestling, judo, and karate. Member of Black Belt Federation during the 50s and 60s. So martial arts, you don't want to walk up to him and talking junk to the man because he can throw hands. I'm thinking that gets better as you get older. When you're young, you got the strength and all the, grits and sass and all that, but the older is wisdom and experience. Okay, so I wouldn't mess with him. A lot of his resume is going to center around education, and I think some of his inroads into education encouraged him to grow into the work that he does nowadays. Another thing I like about him is he is able to take these complicated issues, tell the story behind them, the history, and make them understandable to me anyway. I hope people who have the privilege of sitting down and hearing this man understand what it's incredible what he's doing. And the information he's making known to the world. If more blacks would just get the message, I think we are. I think I saw something on CNN the other day where a black kind of high-ranking female reporter or journalist, she seemed to have that angst that I'm looking for, that I have, about exclusively black issues, how they're situated in the United States. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Civil rights, social integration was just the beginning. It did not fulfill what blacks are really after in this nation. That's why we got a white statue of Dr. Martin Luther King on the Washington Mall, carved by an Asian artist. Okay, that should not be so, in my opinion. So karate, education, and so he did a lot. He started doing some work in Detroit. Good place to start for blacks because Detroit, it's that place. It's another one of those places. You got motor companies and things like that. Motown is up there and whatnot. When the money was rolling in, a lot of things were happening for Detroit economically. You got the Detroit Lions. They got a nice dome, NFL dome up there and stuff like that. But it's, again, if you look at Detroit, it's a picture of, blacks. There was obviously a northern migration from the South. Detroit, New York, Philly, D.C., Chicago, these blacks come Then the whites begin, in this case, whites plant their businesses, begin extracting resources. In this case, I don't know if Detroit had raw resources, but it was where the cars are being made. Extract their resources. When they're done, they just leave. And in the wake is abject poverty and all this stuff in their wake. Now Dr. Anderson brings out how the Arabs have come in now, and through their businesses are still, the point is blacks don't run businesses and aren't in control. Blacks are spending their disposable income with communities that are in competition with blacks and not reciprocating black business and things like that. So now it's the Arabs, as far as, if I understand Dr. Anderson's message correctly. Arabs are the ones extracting those resources. Now, it's the people. If the people are there, they have no choice maybe to go to the corner store bodega and things like that and whatnot. The supermarkets, maybe where you can get a better deal. It's not readily accessible. I ride public transportation. I don't want to carry 10 and 20 bags on the bus. That's very cumbersome. Trust me. But a lot of his educational pursuits began in Detroit with elementary special education teacher, and also as principal and assistant principal there. He's also got professorships at Wayne County Community College, Highland Park Community College, Florida A&M University, and Bowie State University. All but very commendable things. Now, so you picture this guy's a thinker. He's thinking through things. He has a genuine desire to see betterment. He doesn't want to see these funds for education in school wasted, just falling flat. In this time, he's noticing a difference between the education for the black children and education for everybody else. There seems to be some differences there. I want to see more of that as we come to his history with the state of Florida. Very important. In Florida, he was appointed advisor, coordination of education by then Governor Reuben Askew through that tenure. In his time down there, he started some affirmative action plans. Now, this is interesting because I don't remember the year, but there was an affirmative action movement that I'm aware of, and it caused a lot of ripples in white society about reverse discrimination and things like that came out. And I'm wondering if he was the spearhead, the tipping point of all of that. It was a big deal. I got to do some research on that. But I remember a time where there was explicit headline news about affirmative action for blacks and how much trouble it caused white community. Consult your notes. I don't know how much time we'll have, but the notes will have this more explicitly. If you get the book, hint, hint, a Black history reader, you'll see this at the back of the book. So this affirmative action things that these processes that he put in place or started, he looked at some studies, creating studies to research the negative impact of school integration on students, teachers, and parents. Because integration, you're taking the black kids do come from a different community, and they're not trained, behaved. They might come from situations that are more stressful than their white counterparts, than their other races counterparts. So there's that. There's through his books, videos, there's wonder, and one of my beefs here on this program is whether there's a mental if the mental conditioning still prevails. Is there mental damage? One of the questions I think in the Black History Reader is about mental damage to Black folks from slavery, and whether we really need some determined breaks here in America. But things keep going on the status quo, and things change very slowly. But that's the thing. So I believe he's starting to see that in American schools and education. So a lot of information about his Black activism. He's looking for more representation in politics and business. A lot of these things he started really happening for him in Florida. So he's learning how to move amongst power players and to get funds and resources to get things done on behalf of Black folks, especially through his participation down at Florida A&M University. And that's how life goes. I've got skills. I'm building on skills that I've learned from my youth. It's how we learn. It's not, and through that process, we come to new ideas and new experiences and new heights, new ways to assist communities or not, things like that. So now that's his national, that's his kind of statewide exposure in Michigan and Florida. Now let's talk about his national exposure. His exposure goes all the way to international exposure and influence. Nationally, he was campaign manager for Jimmy Carter and Florida's then governor, Reuben Askew. He's helped state attorneys, legislators, mayors, Congress people. He knows how to, situate resources and power to get things done. Helped get 3 Black federal judges appointed. He's saying, okay, there's no Blacks are underrepresented in America in powerful key positions. How do we get this done? He says, I know how to get it done. And he pulls his resources, his influence. He's not a guy sitting on his hands complaining about the status quo. He's out there on the pavement. He's putting skin in the game to get stuff done. I really like that about him. 1988, Special Project Director for the DNC in Atlanta, Democratic National Convention down there. He turned down some ambassadorships to Bahamas, Ghana. Jimmy Carter appointed him Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Federal Chairman of the Coastal Plains Commission, on and on and on. That's his national exposure is real and very just very influential, these circles in which he's striven. Internationally, he's headed trade missions to Europe, Africa, Latin America, been around the world. He knows international leadership, and comes right back home to set a tone to get Blacks motivated, to ask whites to reevaluate their participation in the past and how they are behaving here in the present. Making access for Blacks to the wealth and riches of this nation a reality. Very, very important things. Some things that don't come out in his books, but he has white heritage, not just his skin color, but He's still involved and interacts with his white family. This is not hate speech. This is not racism. We'll put that of the emotionalism and politics aside. Let's talk about the facts about wealth and access to wealth and resources in America. Are there barriers for blacks accessing that? You know, if you look on a graph of growth and expansion of other races, Asians, whites, and Hispanics, it kind of goes, goes there and like the stock market ticker, but the general direction is always upward. But what you find with blacks is it's almost like they're dead. You got to pull out the paddles, give them a little shock once in a while to see if the race is alive, almost. Okay, that's an economic result for black Americans here in this rich nation. So I mentioned that because he's got a white family heritage. Probably I'm sure I do. Probably many blacks probably do. And he talks about in his videos about his bus line, and that he was a part of, his family was a part of, and got going. And it's sad because when the '60s came out, and some of the explicit barriers to black achievement, like Jim Crow and some of that other stuff, went away or was legislated away. There's a big difference. It didn't go away just because they made a law. They made a law to put it away, but it didn't go away. There's a difference. Okay, we'll get to that later. But he wanted his family, his company, bus company, wanted to expand that project. And they couldn't because the blacks in some of these areas, Birmingham and things like that, were so tricked out about civil rights and social integration that they demanded that they just wanted to be able to ride white buses, go to the white businesses and all that. And it just further decimated any exclusive black business ventures at the time. Black businesses are an extreme minority. Black run and owned businesses are an extreme minority here in the world, in the United States too. So those are some of the issues, though. This mentality where, what makes whiteness so attractive to black folks that they can't even realize that they'll have their own, right? It's a problem where freedom in America isn't how one exercises individuality and gets along and prospers in their individuality. It's how close to whiteness can we become? How close to whiteness can we dress? Can we behave? The alternative is not that we're animals or savages. We're all very civilized folks, right? But the attraction of white involvement, white culture, the whites are sitting on top of so much wealth and capital and control and entitlement and privilege, that it becomes almost like a god to blacks and other cultures. Can't wait to live and behave as a white person instead of an individual, being individualistic. How do we get to that point where, I'm secure in myself with how I look, my skin color, we need to get to that point where there's no barriers based on colors itself, where there's no prejudices. You acknowledge my identity, as being part of the social and economic landscape. Then I'm cool. I'm cool with that. You know, pay me my value, my worth. Interact with me based on my value and worth. You know, not because I'm black and you have to go to Congress to make a program for black people. Not because you're white and I have to complain because you're having too much entitlement and privilege and you're not sharing and all that stuff. That's ridiculous. You know. So there's a little snapshot of Dr. Claud Anderson. Get his books and all that stuff. Look at the videos. Our time is up. I'm glad to spend it with you. Again, welcome to the new subscriber. And pass the word along, please, if you will. Add a like if you like as well. Thanks. That's 365 days towards racial change. Day number 42. I'll see you again.